Hi, this is Jeff, and today we have the new Mavic Air from DJI. So today I'm going to show you everything you need to know about the DJI Go 4 app so you can get your new drone up in the air and start having some serious fun. So with that, let's get started. Alright, so first off, on the top left of your screen, when you go into the DJI app, you'll see the DJI icon up there. Really, the only reason you want to ever go there is just to back out, and worst case scenario, you're going to go into Find My Drone. So there's really no reason to ever, hopefully we're not going to have that ever happen. So, but if that's what you need, you can always go there. So the next, going from top left to top right across the screen, is the Ready to Go Vision. Click on that, and that'll go into your aircraft status. You can look at your flight mode, currently set to GPS. Compass is normal. Basically gives you all the settings that you want to see. If anything is not normal, you'll see that here. Maximum altitude is certainly currently set to 120 meters. Maximum flight distance is currently set to disabled. Remote controller comes in default by mode 2. You can change that around if you want to, but there's really no need to. That just changes the default functioning of your sticks. So there's really no need to ever do that. As you scroll down, you've also got button customization. Let's see what the options are. First off is turn off head, LEDs, center metering, AE lock, camera settings, gimbal recenter, first person view mode, follow me mode, battery info, navigation, replay, switch. So probably a good place to set your camera settings up here if you just want a quick access to it. The C button, same thing, you could customize that. Currently undefined. So these are just typical things you could look at if you're looking for, places to change the settings. Alright, so that's just current aircraft status. Moving right along, currently we're in GPS mode. Anyway, on the top left there, you've got the drone setting. So these are all the things you could change with the drone itself. So the first one is the home point settings. The one on the right hand side is basically saying the home point is going to be where your remote controller currently is. And then the second one, if you chose that would set the current aircraft position as the home point. I don't see why you'd ever really want to do that, but the option is there. Alright, intelligent flight modes, you want to just leave those on so you can always toggle back and forth. Alright, return to home. Altitude, currently I have mine set to 75 meters, which I think is about 250 feet, 275 feet. That's a good place to start for me on this. In my location, we have pretty tall trees, so if I ever lose control with the lose connection between the Mavic Air and the remote controller, I can fly 275 feet up in the air and then go back to my home point. Beginner mode, I just turned that off. That's basically like starting out in tripod mode. Maximum altitude currently set to 120 feet. 120 meters. I believe that's about 400 feet or so. Distance limit set is off. Advanced settings, let's go here, check it out. EXP, this is a good spot to go when you want to change your gimbal settings. When you're changing some of these, when you're moving the sticks around, this is basically the sensitivity of the sticks. So this will help you a lot in getting a much smoother shot with your camera, gimbal, and the quad together. So I'll check into these, put another link to another video, and I'll post that and put a link to that in the description as well. But basically I would probably put this at like 0.20 across each one of those, and that'll just kind of slow down all the movements. Okay, so I'm going to back out of that. Next up is the number of satellites that you have. Right now it's saying I've got 10 satellites. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. Next up is the visual navigation settings. I would just leave these all on by default. You've got navigation sensors on the front, the bottom, and the back, but not the sides. Alright, so just leave all these on. Enable horizontal obstacle avoidance and tap fly. That's just for the tap fly function. You can turn that on. Enable backward flying in active track. Definitely leave that on. Enable obstacle avoidance in active track, also good to have on. Display the radar chart. You can probably see that in the background. Advanced vision settings. Alright, enable downward vision positioning. Just leave all these on. This is your basically your radar for your drone, so that if you get in close contact to something, it will notify you. So that's the forward, the landing, and then the return home obstacle detection, so you can fly up and over an object. Definitely want to have these on. Alright, moving right across the top, this is telling you you're in, what was I in before? I was in 5.8 gigahertz. There's also the 2.2, I think, gigahertz is the other one. Different channels that you're picking up. So right now you've got auto and custom. Custom is when you want it to toggle back and forth between the different types. So basically 1 through, I think it's channel 1 through 14 gives you the 2.2 gigahertz frequency. And what that does is in theory allows you to fly a more direct path in any given direction. That'll give you a better signal in a very specific direction. The 5.8 gigahertz is going to give you a better signal, 360 degree direction, but it's not going to be as far reaching in theory. I've seen several videos on the web that you get good reception with either one of these. So probably best just to leave it in auto, and it'll fluctuate back and forth depending on the situation. Alright, next up is the battery. All green here. Currently the low battery warning is set to 30%. For this, I would probably set this down to let's say 25. So it'll give you the low battery warning. 30% is pretty high on a 21-minute battery. Alright, so 3 dots at the top. I'll go down to that in a little bit. Next is this bar, and it starts over here and goes all the way across to the right. And what that is showing is what is your battery time left. So top right, you can see 87% battery. As you're flying, this little bar is going to kind of rapidly go in this direction towards this little icon here where it says H, and that's where it's going to give you the warning saying, hey, you're running out of battery, so you need to return home immediately. And then at 10%, I think, is the battery warning. It's just going to start landing wherever it is. Okay, so that covers the top 2 rows. Now I go down to here to my ISO. Currently my ISO is set at 400. That's just because I'm indoors, just so you guys can see the the screen in the background a little bit better. My shutter is 1/60th, and you want to have double your frame rate. So my current frame rate is 24 frames per second. So double that. So I should have this really at about 50 frames per second. If you're going 30 frames per second, you want to have it like it is there at 1/60. Desync is the color mode. In this case, it only comes in 2, as opposed to the Mavic Pro where it had half a dozen or more, maybe 8 to 10. But really, everybody either chose desync or normal or D-log. So white balance is auto set, in this case at 550K. This shows you that I'm shooting in 4K video at 30 frames per second. My capacity for this memory card, on this one I don't have the memory card in the Mavic Air. I've got that internal 8 gig. So this one says I could record for 11 minutes, I believe it is, 11 minutes 15 seconds, which is quite a bit at 4K. So down here on the right hand side, as I'm moving down the right hand side of the app here, as you can see, this basically is the toggle between video and photo. Tap it again, goes from photo back to video. Alright, tap it again, so you can just toggle back and forth. If it's white here, that's photo mode. If it's red, that means it's recording, and then this is your button. Right, so you can always hit record, stop record, go here, snap a picture. Okay, so next down is these 3 bars here. These are where all of your camera settings are. So right now I have my ISO set to 100. You can just brighten that up in here just to bring up the, in a dark situation. Really on these Mavic quadcopters, probably not more than maybe 800. If you go up to like 3200, I mean, you can't really tell here because it's not a real accurate picture, but if you're outside flying, this is going to be totally blown out. If you're flying in dark, it's just going to be very distorted and not usable. So, all right, so really on this page, all you can cover is your ISO and your shutter on the Mavic Pro. That's set using manual. I would never use auto in this. You'll get undesirable results where it flickers. If you do want to go into auto, you know, it's gonna go all over the place depending on what you're pointing at. The ISO is gonna automatically adjust, and you really don't want that when you're doing filming. So keep it on manual. All right, so next you go to camera settings. Photo, you can say single shot, HDR photos, all the way down to pano. You've got interval for doing time lapse, auto AEBs, bracketing, burst mode. All right, you could do 3, 5, 7, whatever. Lots of different options here. Always keep mine on single shot for default for now. All right, next we go to image ratio for photos, 4:3 or 16:9. Really up to you. Most people, when they're sharing stuff on Instagram or what have you, it's always going to be a 4:3 photo. Image format, RAW, JPEG, JPEG plus RAW. I usually leave mine on JPEG, to be honest with you. If I do color correct a photo, it's just going on Instagram. But definitely it's there for the folks that are really into doing the color corrections and things like that. Or you can just do one of each, do a JPEG and a RAW. Obviously it's going to take up more space that way. Alright, style, none. That's just the default. You can always set this up to do custom. Lots of different ways: color, contrast, clarity. Now we want to switch back to video mode, and there's a whole other different options. So same spot, you've got the ISO set here, currently set at 460 shutter speed. Camera settings. All right, so for video, all kinds of different camera settings for video. So currently I've got 3840 by 2160 at 30 frames per second. As you go down, if you go to 2.7K, you've got more options than you had in the past. So now you can go up to 60 frames per second. Still back at 24, all the way up to 60. If you go down to 1920 by 1080, which is really the lowest I would go if you're uploading to YouTube, but you could go to 720. But anyway, 1920 by 1080, you can go up to 60 frames per second here, and then one more to 120 frames per second. That's pretty good for you know, 1920 by 1080. All right, next up, the other settings. Histogram. These are things that you can turn on your display on your phone while you're flying. I'd be real careful here in adding too many things to your display. So you can add the histogram. What that does is put this little guy up in the middle. Basically, it will show you a histogram to show you if you're overexposed or underexposed. Right now, I'm pretty much underexposed because I'm looking at my laptop screen, and it's pretty dark comparatively. I usually leave that off. It's not that important for me. Video captions. Not 100% sure what the video captions is, but I leave that off. Overexposure warning. You can put this on, and then see in the top middle third, you see that little zebra thing going on. That's basically showing you where it's overexposed. You'll get the hang of it. I usually keep that off. It kind of helps maybe when you're getting started and you don't realize it until after, you know, you're looking at the video afterwards, and you'll say, oh man, all my details blown out. It's because of that. It's because you know, it's too bright, and that's where the ND filters can really help you out. All right, now the grid, I definitely leave this on just so I can compose the shot correctly. You can put the 3 different rows there, the grid lines, and then you can have the grid lines with diagonals. I don't bother with the diagonals. Sometimes you can leave it off. It's up to you. All right, smart LED settings. LEDs off when shooting and recording. that's good to have on. Sometimes I don't know if it'll really be an issue here on the Mavic Air, but the red lights will be flashing on the arms when you're recording video. So rear LEDs auto off, just leave that off. Head LEDs auto off, I leave that on. Alright, save unstitched panos, you can leave that on. Save unstitched panos photos, all unstitched pano photos will be saved. Ensure you have sufficient storage before shooting. Alright, I'll leave that off for now. Storage location, currently set to internal. I don't have a storage card on here, but you could add the SD card as well and make that the default. Alright, reset camera settings, self-explanatory. That'll just reset everything. Format internal storage, same thing. Format SD card, if I had one in here, same thing. Alright, I think that has everything on the camera settings. Okay, so next up, if you want to auto take off, on the top left there you see the arrow button pointing up. You can do that to take off the drone, and that's going to be the same as pushing the two sticks inwards together and down. That'll start the propellers, and then you push up on the left one that launches the aircraft or the drone. The home point, that will mark up, and that'll light up once you have taken off and hovered in place for a few seconds. It'll mark your current home point, and so that'll be a button that you could press when you want to return to home. Alright, so now I'm going to look at the controller settings. This is where all the cool stuff is. Alright, so right now you're in normal mode. If you want to go to the quick shots, that's where you go and see all the quick shots. Can't use that unless I'm flying, but that's where you've got the droney mode, the asteroid mode, rocket man mode, a couple other ones. Alright, so if you go to active track, that's where all the you draw the box around the subject, and in theory you'll be able to track that subject. I'll leave another video link in that. Same with the quick shots. I'll leave a link to the description so that you can see more details on how to set that up. Smart capture, that's the wave. You can do hand gestures to make the Mavic Air take a picture of you, fly away from you, fly forward to you, things like that. Tripod mode is awesome. That's where it basically slows everything down to like 3 miles an hour. So your movement is greatly reduced, and that's what helps you get much better video quality. Cinematic mode does much the same thing. It's kind of an automated way of doing that. Tap fly is kind of as the name implies. As you're looking on the screen, you hit this button, hit tap fly, and it'll fly basically on a dolly directly in that direction. Point of interest goes around in a circle. You want to look at whatever. It could be a point of interest. You could be the point of interest. It could be a car. It could be a building. It'll fly in a circle around that point of interest. All right. So these are all things I can't really show you without taking off, but I'll put a link to the description. I've done videos on a lot of these in the past, so I'll just link those videos so you can jump out to those as needed if you have questions. Okay. APAS, intelligent. See, when enabled, the aircraft will attempt to automatically avoid obstacles when flying forward with the remote controller. Left and right speed and gain will be reduced. Fly with caution and avoid using this function when ambient light is weak or obstacles are too small. Yes, turn that on. Alright, APAS has been enabled. Okay, across the bottom is your map. This is important. If you lose kind of your reference of where you are, this will kind of leave a breadcrumb trail. If you get turned around in the air, sometimes you're not exactly sure, and the adrenaline's going and your battery warning is going off, and so this is an easy way to just hit this map button. It expands the map, takes away the camera, and you can either do the return home function, press the button, or if you're not 100% certain that you've set that up correctly, fly back in a beeline straight towards the H, which is the marker for the home point. So that's an excellent kind of a backup plan if your return to home is not working or you're not 100% sure that you set it up correctly. Okay, distance. Right now it says 10.2 feet. That's basically the distance that the drone has traveled from the remote controller. And mine's actually much shorter than that. It's probably about 10 inches away. So right now mine is in feet. Height obviously is the height of the drone, as you know, from the controller. Speed, I have mine is set to miles per hour. In normal mode, it can go up to 24 miles an hour, I think, and then in sport mode, I think I read it was 42 miles an hour. So anyway, that's a good information to have there. So you want to take it, you want to really keep an eye on this, because if you get into a windy situation and you're maxing out at 22 or 24 miles an hour and you're in normal mode, and for some reason the wind is 30 miles an hour and you're trying to get back to your home point, you're basically screwed unless you switch it to sport mode, because you're going to be constantly, you know, going full throttle and actually going in reverse. So if that happens, just flip to sport mode and you should be, that'll at least get you forward progress, and hopefully enough forward progress to get you back to your home point. Alright, vision positioning system, bottom right, basically tells you how close something is behind you. This basically says there's something, you know, within a third of a foot, which is pretty accurate. You've got my MacBook there, and I'm sitting right behind the Mavic Pro. Alright, so guys, you're also going to have these warnings that come up from time to time, like the backwards obstacle sensing is not functioning, ambient light is too weak. That's basically because I'm inside. You'll get other things like it's windy outside, be careful. So anyway, just take a look at those. They're not imminent warnings, but they can be kind of annoying. So anyway, just hit the X to, once you understand it, and then just carry on. Like I said, guys, I'll put up some other links to some other videos that'll go into more details about how to set the camera up for the best settings, how to slow down your gimbal so your gimbal doesn't move too fast, to keep that, and I'll keep that smooth. I'll put a link in there for that. I'll put a link in there for, you know, how to do the tap fly. I've done that before. Got a video out there with that. That's pretty good to use. The quick shots, I'll put a link up as soon as I have that. Same with the active track. I've done an active track in a vehicle. Alright, what else do we have here? Point of interest, I've got a video, a link to that, and then I'll get the smart captures set up as well. Alright guys, so that about does it for the DJI Go 4 app for the Mavic Air. Drop me a comment, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer that as fast as I can and get back to you. And with that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.